All right, we're back. Time for After the Beat. Luke Thomas, Danny Segura, Brian Campbell, and Chuck Mindenhall here for you. I used to call this the beat off, but then people got mad at me, so I had to stop doing it.
I haven't heard you use that in a while.
Yeah, people got bitter at me about it.
No
so
fab zone, please.
I know. So I will not call it that, but we are here for After the Beat. We've taken your questions using the hashtag #TheMMABeat. We have pulled some select tweets out. Now, have you seen this before?
No.
You've never seen this?
I usually peter out if you want to keep those going.
Yeah,
about,
fair enough.
about 75 minutes, yeah.
So the deal is this. These questions will be about MMA, but they'll also be about crazy things too.
That means soccer usually.
So be on, dude. There's now because of what you said, people are asking us soccer questions, anything. And then they're tagging you in them.
I noticed that.
That's great. The expert right here.
All right, let's get to our first question, shall we? And I can't read because I'm going blind. Why isn't pirating discussed more as an attributing factor, they're missing the word there, to the low pay-per-view numbers? I'm the only schmuck out of everyone I know that watches MMA that actually pays for the events. I'd like to go first on this if I can, gentlemen, because this is the perennial excuse of, not that I haven't heard the UFC trot this out in a while, or any promoter in a while, but whenever you hear a promoter complaining about it, it's essentially an admission that they didn't do their job, which is to say the following. Yes, pirating can be a serious problem. I'm sure it does absolutely undercut promoters whenever they try to do something of significance. We can all agree that that's really true. You can remember how much pirating there was for Mayweather-McGregor. At the same time, Mayweather-McGregor ended up being arguably the greatest selling pay-per-view worldwide of all time. So which is it, right? You were massively impeded by pirating, or you're the most successful venture in that space. The reality is this: while it's a constant problem, I have been in combat sports, Brian, long enough, and I'm sure you have as well. I'm sure you've heard Bob Arum complain about it at times. The reality is, yes, it matters, but it only happens. It happens all the time with promoters after something went wrong. It's true that they can still succeed after. They often do succeed after. They just trot it out to say, let me cover my ass a little bit. True or false?
I think that's true, and I think the more you promote it, by the way, if you're a promoter and you blame it, you encourage it in the end, right? You encourage people to feel, oh, wait, other people aren't paying for it? How do I figure that out? I think you just don't touch it. You don't talk about it. Is it responsible for a portion? Absolutely. This is where we are in 2018. There's no question about it, but no, don't cry. Don't lean on it.
All I know is when I've known some people who've pirated, you know, the 70s, they would always tell you. I know some people who've done that, obviously, but like
talking about the
for
staff
the most, yes, our staff, no, but for the most part, it's funny. I feel like I don't really think about it too much because most people I know honestly purchase the pay-per-view, or the bars do, or the things around you. So it's almost like I push that out of my mind. I don't really believe there probably is an uptick in how much piracy is going on that might affect it a bit. I just think honestly the bigger thing is just the waning interest. I just think it's more about that on whole than it is more people
I know
pirating.
tons of people that do
I'm
pirating.
Sure
your demo.
Yes, I was going to say.
Because, you know, most of my friends don't have cable, so they just rely on the internet and, you know, a few links here and there. But, yeah, I mean, you cannot possibly blame piracy for bad pay-per-views because just a few months ago, we've had a huge pay-per-views. So, I mean, it ultimately hurts, obviously, to some degree, but you cannot blame it entirely.
Well, pirating's not free. Your computer gets basically an equivalent of an STD most of the time. So
I mean, if you have a Mac, you should be all right.
Yeah, if you have a nice computer, you'd be fine. If you have that piece of junk you're pulling around. This is the other part too. It's like, what was the last time you had a pay-per-view that would have done 500,000, but for piracy, it was knocked down to 3? Yeah. Like anytime a pay-per-view is done around
and also,
3 or 4, there are reasons you can cobble together to explain. Yeah, it's about where it should end up.
And I'll say this. I know tons of people that go, I'll stream that one. Because what happens when you stream? I'm sure maybe you guys have done some. The quality's terrible. It's choppy. It dies on you. You have to constantly find like.
I hear that it's often in another language. I don't know if that's true or not.
It's often in another language. You're in a tiny little computer, right? If you hook it up to your TV, the resolution's not the same. It's shit. Let's be honest. Yeah. So when you got something good, you want to pay for it. Why? Because you want to get the HD. Yeah. You don't want it to fail in the middle of a sequence. If it's good, people are down to pay. If it's shitty, people are down to watch a shitty stream.
You can't blame piracy. You got to blame really crappy main cards. 227, when you fail, by the way, 227, great NBC sitcom in the 80s, by the way. When you fail, it's because of the fights on your pay-per-view main card. Who's in that women's strawweight bout on Saturday night? Exactly.
Pollyanna Viana and
Wow, he ruined the joke. He just blew it up.
I forgot who the other one was. Sorry. What were you gonna say, Chuck?
227 was a good show. Wasn't that a spinoff of The Jeffersons?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
With Jack
I just
A.
wanted to, I just want to finish that thought.
Beans don't wait. How's it go? Beans don't burn in the kitchen. No, I can't remember what it is.
East Side.
Who cares? All right, let's go to the next one. All right, let's see. Oh, here we go. The ABC passed on Tuesday a new regulation for second-day weigh-ins. What are you guys doing that for?
I was trying to tell you, you could read it easier over there.
Oh, all right. On championship, because that tapping me like a gunman walked in the room. Championship participants cannot gain more than 10% of the contracted weight the day of the fight. Thoughts on MMA adopting this rule? Brian, let's go with you since you come from boxing. What do you make of this?
It's a step in the right direction, but it's still obscenely archaic, and I think there will become a time.
Why is it archaic?
That we're still doing this, that we're still allowing people to dramatically cut so bad. I think, like, we look back at people fighting without gloves and Joe San getting punched in the crotch by Keith Hackney 57 times and laugh about how absurd it used to be. We will do that about these days of hard weight cuts. You want to fix weight cutting in every possible weight cutting sport, you have to weigh in Thursday morning, Thursday night, Friday morning, Friday night, Saturday morning, and right before you walk out to the fight. Is it really that hard? Fight at your natural weight.
Well, not everyone's natural weight is the same. Some might be a few pounds over, so there has to be some weight cutting. I don't know if this is the right answer to it.
I think you just contract the weight in the contract. Oh, how much do you weigh? You know, ask Connor, what do you want to fight at? How about 160? What do you want to fight at? How about 165? Okay, 165.
And
done.
what weight class would that be? What belt would that be?
The one that's going to get a shitload of money. I know that one.
There has to be weight classes. I just
If there's
think
a 175 and a 165, you're right in the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, but shouldn't you have to prove you can make that weight more than just one time as you look like Skeletor? Like, this is not a new theory, guys. Why are we still doing this? Are they waiting for a champion to die? Is that what it's?
That's what Kevin Lee said, but I disagree. I think there is a benefit to weight cutting, not a substantial one, and it goes right to the edge of the cliff, and then once you go off the cliff, then there's no going back. But I do think getting a little size advantage, yeah, it's significant actually. People are like, why do people keep weight cutting? It's bad for you because size confers advantage. Yeah. I mean, why is this hard to understand?
So that's kind of cheating, right? Do I have to be the soapbox guy who says that Brock just failed a steroid test and Darren Till was 4 pounds overweight? I'll be that guy if I have to.
You can carry that cross. What do you think, Chuck?
We've been through this so many times, man.
I know.
Honestly, like, I do sometimes think we're waiting for somebody to die. I certainly don't know if this, like you mentioned, I don't know if this would be anything better. That's an interesting theory, what you just said. If you really want to get people a consistent idea, you would do something like that. If you want them to be really the same weight the whole way, that's what you do.
How bad is weight cutting in boxing in your judgment?
Just as bad as MMA, absolutely.
People say that. Is that true? Because the wrestling weight cutting culture is terrible.
You don't see as many near situations of, I guess, death. You see some, but you see more advantages. I mean, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. built his entire short career at the top on the fact that he could fight at middleweight in a cruiserweight's body. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous coming in with that type of advantage.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's go next. Let's see here. Okay, the question is favorite metal band. Now, I know Danny's a big Dying Fetus fan, as am I. But I'll flip the question around a little bit. How about this? We'll go with you, Danny, first. How about favorite music act, period?
Wow.
Your number one, lo mejor.
Jeez.
Favorite music act, like performance? Like,
you mean like an event?
What exactly do you refer when you say that?
When you say this person, this band, this group, this whatever, this is my favorite artist in music. This is my number one. What would you say? Do you have one?
Well, I still fail to get the question. What do you mean? Who's my favorite band, or what do you mean?
Okay, a music artist.
Right.
Can be either a band, can be a person, can be an orchestra, but which one?
Oh, Trans-Siberian on fire.
Certainly everyone's top 5 list. What would be your number one favorite musical act? It's tough, right?
It's tougher when you actually
I feel
zoom
like
out on the genres.
you get a little bit of
include all
advantage because
genres.
you get to think of these questions beforehand.
Yeah, of course I pick them.
Yeah. What is your answer?
Oh, let's go down the line then. Do you have one?
I don't, man, but because I've been
You sound fun.
I
You seem
have
like a
so
fun
many
guy,
genres. I like multiple genres of music. There's not like one band that I'm like, I love this at all times.
What are a couple that just always end up in rotation?
Man, I like listening to the first wave station. Like if I'm on the Sirius channels and stuff like that, I like a lot of that early alternative stuff. But I loved a lot of metal, early metal. I don't really listen to it as much as you do. You know a lot of the more current stuff. I love punk music a lot.
All right.
I loved old outlaw country. Man, I could go on and on. So that's what I'm saying. I love Johnny Cash.
Do you have a favorite
just
album
as much.
of any kind?
Not really, man. I really don't.
Wow.
This is the lamest music conversation of all time.
These always suck. It's like because you can't pick. It's tough.
I think people can pick. I just think you don't.
Can you pick? Can you pick?
I got a couple out there I can name.
right.
Hold on, let's go to Brian
I'm a
first.
big indie rock fan today, so My Morning Jacket, Wilco, Head in the Heart are my core right now. But I mean, I'm a giant classic rock folk guy. Bob Dylan, The Byrds, Jimi Hendrix.
Nickelback.
Come on, I mean, it's really not that hard. Pearl Jam, come on, put on 90s one-hit wonders. I'm right in my feel hole. You know what I mean? If you know what I mean, it's gross, but you know what I mean.
I know you're white. I know that.
I listen to like way too many different types of music to really pick one.
Throw out a couple.
But I'll just say like I could never go wrong with listening to some reggaeton. Never.
You know what? I can't hate on that.
Reggaeton's awesome.
Can you
It's always good
translate that?
vibes.
What was that?
Reggaeton's like what, like Hispanic rap combined with reggae,
Almost like a dance music,
kind of.
something like that.
Yeah.
Like a prime 311?
It's always a good time.
It's not the same as Spanish or Latin rap, which is different. It's more like Daddy Yankee or Nicky Jam, a little bit.
Maluma.
J Balvin.
Bailamo, Let
Bad
the
Bunny.
Rhythm Take Me Over.
Bailamos.
I've done some of that,
Well, that's not reggaeton.
shake it
That's
off.
not reggaeton.
All right.
Daddy Yankee or Yankee is the big one.
That's
what
the
we
OG.
know.
Wow.
Well,
Train
that's
off the
that's
tracks.
like
For me, I'll say top music acts, like things that just keep ending up in my playlist like all the time. It's hard to say a little bit, but I would say, and you're gonna laugh,
Milli Vanilli.
Milli Vanilli. How did you know? No, it's not that. It's going to be Pantera is probably one of the most.
I was going to say Pantera.
Pantera is just, I mean, it's borderline gospel for me.
Kind of make-out music, too, in a way.
You know, it's definitely romantic. When I think of By Demons Be Driven, I think, I want to kiss a girl.
They're the roofies, right?
Oh, man.
Wow.
You're taking it there.
Hey, no one gets to this point in the show. We know that, though.
Yes,
right?
everyone
I
has.
don't even know if that camera's
everyone
on
has
right now.
officially tuned out. Hold on, I'm going to pull up. Oh fucking hell! Hold on, let me pull this up. Oh yeah, the other one I was going to say. I'll leave that aside. But the other act that I swear to God people are going to say it's not true, but has had the biggest effect on my tastes is a close second would be Depeche Mode, but then would be Sam Cooke. Sam Cooke to me might be the most talented musician I've ever heard in my life. Period. Independent of style, independent of anything. I just can't believe how good he is.
Yeah.
So and. Like Brian, a womanizer. All right, let's go to the next one.
How dare you?
All right, do you think pay-per-view and overall viewership, Chuck, will be better when UFC transitions over to ESPN?
I hope so. I really do, man. I want the sport to kind of start thriving again. It's a lot more fun to cover when you got multiple stars and
When
everything.
sport's hot, it's so fun.
When it is hot and you got multiple, every event looks like an event because there's a big star in each one. I love it when it's like that. So I hope we return to that. We always talk about the kind of peaks and valleys of this sport. I hope we're heading towards another peak. I'm a little skeptical though, man. I think that there's just been, we've seen the sport so much. There used to be a novelty just to checking it out, to understanding it, to understanding jiu-jitsu better, to understanding the striking better, to understanding the personalities better. I feel like most people who've paid attention know those things now. I just think there's a little bit of a waning of spirit. They need to kind of tap into the next generation of fans, I think, to get it back to that level.
If they can't, it's an absolute failure with this ESPN deal. How could it not? How could you not increase your pay-per-views with that type of promotion? We talk about not being promoted.
That's what they said before the Fox deal. That's what they said before the Fox deal.
I just don't know. Well, look, think about it. There's still that advantage in the battle of ESPN versus Fox or FS1 that every gym, every bar, every restaurant's default is still ESPN and SportsCenter. It's just automatically going to spread a little bit more like wildfire. Taking it off of TV and putting it on a pay app, ESPN Plus, is a minor problem in that. But overall, come on, it can't fail.
I think it has to improve. I mean, watching UFC on Fox 30, like the ratings, that has to be alarming for the UFC. Pay-per-view numbers for UFC 226, that has to be alarming. And ESPN is a fresh start for them. They have to be looking at all these things and go, we have to change something. So I think something will improve.
I don't think it will improve at all until, hold on.
You're so positive.
Hold on. I will make a clarification. I'll make a clarification. Remember what this deal calls for. They're going to air according to the deal, and remember, if it's going to air partly on ESPN, they're going to sell ads against it. So ESPN is waiting on this content 12 pay-per-views a year. Sorry. They are setting themselves up for dramatic failure if they continue on that path. There is no way, remember, it's a 5-year deal. I call bullshit now. There is no way in 5 years they're doing 12 pay-per-views a year. It is not possible. They are going to absolutely run themselves into the ground. ESPN can do, I think, a lot of things for them. It cannot save them on pay-per-view. It cannot. No outlet can. They have to save themselves in that space.
Yeah. So. If I guaranteed you that Conor McGregor fought 5 times in the next 2.5 years and won 4 of them, would you, and you knew that coming in, would you say the pay-per-view business would have been fixed?
No. It would be better. But the pay-per-view is fine for marquee attractions and nobody else. So how would
take that rising tides? Right?
How would that transfer over? It wouldn't. Okay, let's go. What beat panelist would win Chopped? By the way, this is from Dr. Jed Meshew II, the man who has only the most nuanced takes on Twitter. You ever seen his Twitter, Brian?
No, I've never seen Chopped either, so I'll just kind
of. Okay, so here's the setup.
Show, right?
Here's the setup to Chopped. Here's what they do. They get 3 chefs. Sometimes they get amateurs, but they get 3 chefs. They sit at, or maybe 4 to start, excuse me. They sit 4 chefs. And they give you, there's 3 stages, but the basic idea is that they give you a basket of ingredients. And they appear to be picked at random. Here is beets and tofu, honey, and rice. Make something. Now, you've got a pantry full of other proteins you can add. You've got veggies you can add. You got all kinds of stuff you can add. And you've got a stove, and you got a chop. You got all the utensils you need to cook. You got like 30 minutes to make a dish, and then the best dish wins. And they're looking for creativity. All the ingredients have to be in there. But I guess the basic idea is that who would win at Chopped? I don't know. Probably not me. But
I've been cooking up hot takes all day. Count these rocks, biatch. You know what I'm saying?
Who here is a good cook? What's your best dish that you make?
Ooh. I'm not a very good cook, man, but
you don't listen to music.
I do listen to music. I listen to so much music, though, that it's hard to pare down. I eat so much food. No, but I make tacos pretty well.
Okay, what goes into taco? Soft or hard shell?
Hard shell.
Okay.
And just some lettuce and cheese and some meat. But that kind of
sounds very adventurous. What do we do?
But are we trying to answer this question, or are we just like talking about our?
Would win Chopped? I don't know. Like, how good of a cook is anybody here?
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty decent.
I was gonna say, I actually was going to.
I wouldn't be able to tell you like a specific dish that I make, but like I don't know, just the basics. I can cook chicken, make pasta.
You can make pasta.
You gotta pick these questions better, man.
But, you know.
Holy chef, Iron Chef Morimoto. What else can you do?
And I actually think I might have a good chance at being the best at Chopped. And you might know why. In Colombia, there's this really, especially where I'm from, in Bogota, this really famous thing called calentado.
Yes.
Which is basically just means like reheat. Which what it is you get all your basically like old food that's still good to eat, and then you just mix it and you make something random out of it. And in calentado is never the same. It's never the same. So you add rice, beans, plantains, chicken,
and
steak,
they always
whatever.
And they top it off with the beautiful egg
and an egg. Yeah.
That's exactly how UFC made Saturday's card. This is so like
so the yolk runs into it.
So I'm an expert at just picking random shit and making something out of it.
You know what? Yeah. Danny wins. Danny would win Chopped.
I was gonna actually say Danny would win.
Yeah.
So I got it right.
It's got the culture.
Can you make anything of note besides a bowl of Fruity Pebbles over there, Brian?
Anything at all.
No. Who cooks in your house?
My wife. I do breakfast. I do scrambled eggs, but I try to fool my kids. I put things like bananas and cinnamon in there and try to mess them up.
I used to be able to cook a little bit. I can make really good. This is not particularly sophisticated. It just takes a little bit of time, but I can make really good sweet potato fries from scratch.
Yeah,
I can do that pretty well. So that's about. I mean, I can cook. I can on the grill. You guys know your way around a grill, right?
Oh yeah, I can
cook. I can cook steaks, chicken grill, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. All right. So Danny wins. What's next? Do you ever see MMA as an Olympic sport, Danny?
No.
Why?
It's just rough. I mean, boxing has in Olympic they have the headgear.
No, they took that out. They took it out. Yep. They did historically, but not anymore.
I don't know. MMA is just there's so many things that happen. I mean, we just look at this year. How many times have the cards changed? And also, like, I think it'd be very problematic who'd be representing who. You know what I'm saying? Tons of international fighters come here and train in the U.S. So what you train out of Greg Jackson's, you train out of the U.S., but you're representing, I don't know, Brazil. It doesn't really make much sense. And I think actually, if any martial art has a chance to make it into the Olympics, it'd probably be jiu-jitsu first, then MMA. I think it's a little bit more controlled, and I think guys train usually where they live, right? Although there's a lot of jiu-jitsu guys here in the U.S. as well. But I think if anything, jiu-jitsu is the next thing.
I would actually say, okay, it's funny you mentioned that. The very first big story that I wrote for MMA Fighting years ago, God, how long ago was this? 2011 or something, was a story called Mat Zero. Like, why isn't jiu-jitsu in the Olympics? And the basic answer is that I'd actually say MMA has a better chance as an amateur variety. Like, you're right, the professional side, it's not possible.
Yeah, you cannot fight that
There's
often.
no chance. On the amateur side, maybe, but
no elbows.
You're right in the sense that jiu-jitsu is more like, you look at it, you're like, that's ready-made for the Olympics, right? But the problem is that it's a for-profit sport, and in order for it to become regulated in the way that it would need to and have the oversight to be a part of the Olympic movement, it would essentially have that element removed from it. And you can imagine all of the schools and the brands that make a nice, pretty penny off that, they don't want to let that go. So I don't think it ever will be. Boys? Any contributions?
I can't imagine. Honestly, we've talked about this periodically. It's always kind of fun to revisit it and see if your mind changes on this, but I still don't see a scenario where MMA makes it into the Olympics. There's just too much. There'd be too much. There is too much of a chaotic factor to it. I just don't think that you'd be able to. If you started to take away from it, it starts to fail to be MMA.
That's a great point. The violence hurdle, public image is bad, and then the recovery from injury. Boxing, you can put on headgear. I know it's off now, but they do 3-round fights. So. You can recover from that.
It's not.
There's no elbows, no knee to the face.
Are you going to do a 5-minute MMA fight and then judge it? I don't think so.
There is. God, what part of the games was it? I don't know what kind of games they were in, but Sambo Steve, who's a big guy here in New York City, he was training a team in combat wrestling, which is sort of like catch wrestling. It's like, so there are.
Is it a lot like combat jiu-jitsu?
Except, I mean, jiu-jitsu, of course, you play guard.
Yeah.
In the combat wrestling, it's like wrestling. Like, you don't want to go to your back, and there's a lot of basing out, but there's submissions as well. A lot of bulldog chokes, ankle locks, that kind of thing. And he fielded a team that just got regulated. I forget by which oversight body, but that might be a possibility. I can see that. You wear shoes and that, that kind of thing. So, all right, keep going here. All right, Brian, if you could choose only one of the below, which would it be? Number one, no more Reebok, go back to traditional model. All fight cards on a streaming platform. All cards on Eastern time zone. I think they mean like at a time like, conducive to us. Less interim belt fights and super fights. No more USADA, no more Face the Pain. You can only choose one.
They had me until that Face the Pain. I knew where I was going. And I'm like, oh, man. And
what do you think?
I'm an East Coast guy.
Yeah.
That 8 p.m. Eastern Fox main card time is the best thing ever. The only thing better than it is covering a fight in Vegas and waking up the next morning and watching NFL football at like whatever time that it happens, and you just feel like, wow, that's how the other half lives.
There's really nothing more preposterous than a 1 a.m. main event.
For boxing and MMA, again, we use the word archaic, and by we, I mean me a lot in the show. It's archaic to start these fights at 1 a.m. or 12:30. I know you do it to get past college football in a lot of cases, but can we get off Saturday nights? You're telling me a giant UFC card wouldn't work on a Thursday night? Everybody's home on Thursdays.
Contender Series seems to be done okay.
Quite well, yeah.
Can we put the thing back up one more time to see what we can?
I would go with the same one though.
Here we go.
Those 10 p.m. start times on a Fox. From my understanding, the ESPN is going to follow a similar kind of path on this, but the 10 p.m. start time.
It'll be a lot better.
Okay, well, I hope that that's the case because I
think it might still start at 10.
Well, sounds like my wish came true then.
I think it might still start at 10, but rather than 6, it'll be 5.
Yeah.
And I'm told the shows on ESPN Plus will go like that.
That's awesome. I really hope that that's the case because I've realized that over time because we talk about this. There's no off season. There's events all the time, and if you work in this industry or if you're just a fan, you like to watch these fights. It's a long time to stay up, and I know that every time we complain on the East Coast. The Europeans then come at us and like, oh yeah, we'll try watching it at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. or whatever it is, and I'm like, I understand that too.
They get us back during the Olympics.
Yes,
don't worry about it. They get us back.
But that would be that is it is problematic when you're trying to stay awake for a main event that you're supposed to be most hyped for. You know what I mean?
Well, they really get us back with soccer because when I was in Europe and I was watching soccer at night, that was amazing. I'd rather watch soccer at
but
7.
How late was it?
I remember watching soccer at like 8 p.m., 7 p.m. Rather than here at 2 p.m. You're at work, so you got computer on the side and whatnot.
So the list is here. If you could take one out.
I like watching you suffer sometimes, so I'll keep Face the Pain.
Yeah, I'll keep it.
And I will go with Reebok, man. I mean, I had an article come out a while ago because for those who don't remember, Alex Caceres, he's one of the most unique fighters. He would always come out with, a samurai hat and whatnot. And I interviewed him because he had a long layoff. So Reebok took place, and he hadn't fought for the UFC in a bit, and he was coming back, and he was stepping into that Reebok era. And I talked to him, and he's like, man, they killed the personality. Like, how am I supposed to express myself if I'm being marginalized and I have these rules that I can't do this, I can't do that?
Something did. I think it's fair to say that something did happen when they started to all come out homogenized in a similar look, didn't it? I mean, I just feel like something about that is very weird.
I
didn't know it would matter. I honestly did not know it would matter to me, but it does. Over the course of time, you just wanted to see their personalities that way.
Yeah, and Brian, you might know this very well because of pro wrestling. MMA does have an element to it, and it's about expressing yourself, right?
Even boxing, Regis Prograis came out as the Rougarou in his last fight with his big in New Orleans, and he had this band that came out with him, and like it looked like a Mardi Gras parade. Like, that's huge.
I know.
And that's how you
out
remember
with his mask, things like that. Like there was so much of that back in the day. It made it part of the festivity. It was
and
like part of
the fighters become more memorable.
It was ritualistic. Yeah. Now it's that ritual is
We learned
over.
a lesson. Don't go corporate, bro. Right? Don't ever shave. Don't ever join the Yankees. Like, you just express yourself. People
don't ever root for Real Madrid.
People want real.
I would say from that list, I think you guys know where I'm going to go with this. No more USADA. I am. Let me give a shout out to a podcast.
You really hate USADA.
I don't
the pain.
I do not. I do not.
That's the real testament.
I do not hate these people. I don't know them enough to hate them, but we disagree about a worldview. Let me give a shout out, if I can, to a podcast made by the CBC. It was made last year called On Drugs, and it was. There's been a second season of it, and it's essentially about exploration of human life in the world of drugs. And what that means is, how does drugs affect pain management? How does drug affect people who want to study? How does drug affect sex? How does drug affect our appreciation of art? How does drug affect sports? Any number of ways in which drugs can affect your life, it's an exploration of that. And inside of it, once you begin to realize and study the history of drug use in humanity, and by the way, when I say drug use, I mean caffeine intake, by the way. Caffeine's a really important part. It goes back to many, many centuries ago on the border of Guatemala and Mexico. And there's a huge history behind all of these kinds of things. What you begin to realize is the human condition is intertwined inextricably with drug use. And when you then go and look at what our sport is, which is essentially the destruction of the human body, and we can't find enough room for nuance that we can tip the scales towards any kind of medical treatment for a sport where the sole object is the cutting of skin, is the breaking of bones, is the concussing of brains, is the damaging of organs. It is insane. It is outrageous that we think that that is a good idea. It is a terrible idea. It will carry long-term consequences, and we need no more of it.
This editorial does not necessarily represent the views of the other on this panel. No, just kidding.
It will.
You want to block your estrogen, go for it.
Here's what I know. Here's what I know. There's so many people who disagree with me. Come find me in 20 years when I have won this argument. I guarantee.
Cash me outside. How about that?
Yeah, how about that? Bad Bobby.